My dad had a way of approaching work that I am remembering this morning. It didn't matter much if the work was sweeping smashed apricots off the back porch or building a dog pen. Didn't matter if it was just him and me or if it was a whole crew. He would stand and look at the space and look at the tools and the workers, and then he'd rub his hands together and say, "Looks like we've got our work cut out for us." He always made it sound like good news. It was, and it is, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful to remember that when the work ahead seems daunting, when the work ahead is daunting, we can choose to see that as a good way to spend the day, a good way to spend our resources, a good way to spend our community, a good way to spend our lives. Look at what Jesus sends his followers out to do and to be in the world. All those action words. Shout them out with me if you remember them. He looks, he says, he sends out, he calls. He says, kick out and care and send and command and bring health and raise the dead and touch the untouchables. Live generously. Oh, so many actions. Preach, stay alert, be cunning, be gentle, be smart. Here are a few more action words from me. Paint, write, draw, imagine, sculpt. There's a lot of that going on in the midst of us these days. This morning I have brought some images with me, photographs that I have taken to record some of the actions that others have taken in the streets of our cities. Beginning at Ground Zero, 38th and Chicago, and moving out and to the west, the route I travel between Ground Zero and where I live, I have noticed and taken pictures. I brought them with me so that we can listen to the streets speaking in images. Let me give you an example of what I have in mind, and I will attempt to describe images for those of you who are not seeing the screen this morning. Cassie, will you show the first image, please? In the intro piece. Yes, that is the one. Okay. This is a photo that's part of the image you may have seen on the cover of the bulletin. You may have seen it as part of the Facebook post. It is a dark wooden wall on a bookstore face. It has in the upper right-hand corner a very small face of George Floyd painted. And it's painted, the rest of the wall is dark gray. The next one, Cassie? There it is. Now this is the next panel. It sits right beside the first window. The wall now is white, and it's filled with circles full of colors. They look like kaleidoscope images or flowers. And the next one, Cassie? There, more colors yet on white. The next panel, we can see that the colors are all headed upwards. There's a mountain range close to the top, and the final destination of all of this is a golden, shining sun. Okay, Cassie, you can let them go for the moment. So what is that art saying? I described it briefly. It's going to speak to every one of us differently. That is the beautiful power and the specific mystery of art. We could possibly all see that it says something about a dark and empty space in the before of George's face and an eruption of color and movement in the after of George's face. And we might see that as a grand exhibition of what happened to my potato, of how life comes out of shady corners. So, we are going to look together, and I'll say just enough to let people who aren't seeing the images know what's on the screen. And I suggest that you have something nearby in case you'd like to write something down, something you'd like to remember. We're going to ask you not to use the chat bar during the slideshow, but you may want to take notes. You may want to notice if something you think is lovely. Some things will not probably feel easy. Those might be worth noting too. I invite you to let that be. One of the things that we need to be able to do is to be comfortable being uncomfortable. If we can be strong enough to do that, we will be able to be where we are needed, and we will be able to do the work that needs to be done, because we've got our work cut out for us. So, you might have a spot on a notepad to write things that trouble you, things that comfort you. You might notice what's difficult for you. You might notice if something makes you angry. A lot might happen, or not. Art is like that. But if you'll take those private notes and save the chat bar for a little later, we will share soon. Okay, one more thing before we begin, the images. Cassie, will you show the final image that is in that collection? This is one more. Yes, this image is likely familiar to you. It is a large, colorful painting of George Floyd's head and shoulders, framed by a sunflower, filled with the names of many African-American people who have been killed by police officers. It says his name in large yellow letters, and there are crowds of people silhouetted in those letters in solidarity. Beneath his face it says, "I can breathe now." People have left offerings, signs, milk, flowers. It was painted immediately on May 25th. It has received international attention, particularly this photograph of it, with a little girl standing in front in a pink dress with a sign that says, "My daddy plays with me. Please don't kill my daddy." Now here is another layer about that sign that it is important to know. Cassie, would you put it away? It made some people very angry. And I want to read you some of the artist's words that explain. And I ask you to listen to her rather than argue with her or try to comfort her, because she is demonstrating a kind of accountability that we are being called to in order to find our own voices and our own actions in the time to come. We are, most of us gathered into this gathering right now, to my knowledge, white folks. And we are needing to learn about right relationship and about our fragile places and about our blind spots. And we can, and we will. We got our work cut out for us. These are the words of Greta McLean, the main designer and artist of the image you just saw. This is a Facebook post from June 7th at 6:33 in the evening. This would be about 2 weeks after the mural was painted. She says, "We're getting super important feedback about the mural we created on cup foods of George Floyd. This project was created by a team of white and Latinx painters and was about the death of a black man through police brutality. By jumping into such a public and central action, I, as a white person, centered myself in a space of mourning that wasn't mine to be in the center of. I messed up. I caused harm. And I benefited from this centering in a way that should have gone to a black artist. And I should have known better. I was born in and have lived my whole life in Powderhorn and was driven by an urgency to respond, to change the physical landscape of the site of the murder so that it isn't forgotten, to create a beautiful memorial to George Floyd. But I have 15 years of mural experience. I know that murals should be slow and process-focused for a reason, because they are powerful symbols. I should have paused and created a space for a community conversation before we put up that mural. asked questions like, is Cup Foods the right site for this mural, since they are the ones that called the police? And most importantly, am I the one that should be part of painting this mural? Our team had no black artists, and this memorial site needed to center black voices. I recognize now how disrespectful this has all been, and I want to deeply apologize. I never imagined that this image would blow up in the way that it did, and as the mural received international attention, I was unprepared to deal with the responsibility of navigating incoming monetary donations, setting up a fundraiser, etc. She talks about that in more detail that I won't share. We are not opening up a discussion here, she says, of whether or not it was wrong. It was wrong. We messed up. I messed up, and we are taking full responsibility for what that has meant and will continue to mean to the black community of our city. We support whatever the community decides to do with the mural. I'm sharing this as a white ally and a seasoned community muralist who still messes up and is still navigating every day in every project how to do best, how to best do this work. I'm committed to listening and learning and doing better. My role now as a white community member is to listen and support, not to be silent. It's very important that I talk to my family, my relatives, my friend community, especially those who are white, in order to support the big system change that has to come, because there's no denying that George Floyd was murdered by systemic racism. It's time to change. We all have to be part of that change. We all have a place in creating that change. This kind of deep, committed, responsible work takes time. Takes time to even talk about it. So thank you, Greta. What a valuable teaching. I'm grateful and challenged, and I take it very seriously. So I will tell you that I took every one of these photos that I will show myself, with a few exceptions that I will point out. I don't know who painted them or created them. Some of them are clearly expressions of single artists or teams with a common plan. Some images are clearly the result of many individual encounters. I encountered them as public art in public space and took no private photographs without permission. I have chosen the images. I have chosen the order. I have curated the message by these choices, so I want you to know I know that. And it is my intention in this way to get my computer and share my screen and allow the streets to speak to you, to us, because we got our work cut out for us. All right, I'm getting my computer. And you see now the first slide, which is the one we had Cassie show us last. I did not take that photograph. That one is there for the reasons that we've already said. And so, we start here. This is an image of a street sign. It's 38th and Chicago, and someone has covered the Chicago of the street sign with the words George Floyd Avenue against a stormy sky. On the street, walking into the intersection, is painted a sign that says, "The Lord said, what have you done? Your brother's blood cries out to me." In spray paint beneath it, it says Genesis 4:10. The intersection of 38th and Chicago, Cup Foods in the background. Many memorials have been left around a large, sculpted, standing fist of solidarity. A detail of the site of Cup Foods. Memorials, words that say, "Justice for George," "We stand together," "Change is coming," flowers, hearts, a broken butterfly, layers and layers of offerings. A site immediately beside where George lost his life. Didn't lose his life, where George died. It's now cordoned off. There's a cross standing there that's covered with rainbow mirrors. Pre-existing conditions, some of the words say, being black in America. And on the pavement is written F-L-O-Y-D, F from tragedy, L, love must prevail. O, our cry, Y, your tragedy, D, demands change. Floyd demands change. Walking away from the site, a bus stop on which has been erected a wooden facsimile of the solidarity fist. On the sidewalk, his face and a broom. The street has been swept clean in this picture. On the sidewalk, spray painted. We march, y'all mad. We sit down, y'all mad. We speak up, y'all mad. We die, y'all silent. Michaela has signed her name. An aid station where you can get water and at a later time of the day, perhaps a hot dog. And on the wall behind, beautifully painted, abolish police, I can't breathe, Black Lives Matter, heal, invest, uplift our city. Barely can see city. And an advertisement for a product or two. Another building, large building, huge face. You can barely see the name Floyd in rainbow colors to one side, and this massive wall is painted in 3 separate phrases. Abolish the police, justice, BLM, Black Lives Matter, and love. This is the Hub Co-op. All of these images of the workers, some of them have been boarded over. Friendly co-op, don't burn. Much love. No justice, no peace. Co-op, don't burn. George Floyd, rest in power. Now we're driving away from the site that I call Ground Zero, near a bus stop, Chicago Lake. A lot of plywood beneath a beautiful blue sky, and a face of George Floyd that is created using a 4-color stencil. So this particular image was created by an artist who cut a stencil that creates this image in 4 steps. And very small, you can see near it some smaller versions. This stencil was made in multiple sizes and applied multiple times in this corridor. These are the doors of Heart of the Beast Puppet Theater. There is a lot of writing here, framed in teal and green. White on a black sign, it says, "Could we please give the police department to the grandmothers?" And beneath it, it says, this is a vision poem written by I cannot read her name without my glasses at this size. I'm going to show you the next slide. This is one of the doors. I'm just going to read what it says. No precincts, just love temples. Love temples that got space to meditate and eat delicious food that makes your mouth water and soul arrive. And up the side it says mangoes, berries, blueberries, cornbread, peas, and rice. Grandma sees the pain in your bravado, the confusion in our anger. Grandma knows what oppression has done to our souls and is going to change it. Believe that. She has no fear. If you up to mischief, they will pick you up, ask if you are hungry, and lead you to their gardens. She wants you to know you are safe and protected, universal, limitless, sacred, sensual, divine, and free. We're in Uptown now. We've driven west. And these 4 young artists let David take their picture with their permission. This is the only time I saw artists actually working. I was grateful for their permission to take their picture. There are 4 artists here. They are all young. A young white woman, a young light-skinned black man, a young white male, a young African-American woman with braided hair. On the wall, we've got No Justice, No Peace. We've got Minneapolis Revolution. We've got Black Lives Matter. We have lots of graffiti. These people are painting over some signs as they paint justice slogans. This is a word I want you to see carefully. On the screen is something that is done in the style of graffiti, tagging. And it seems at first glance to say the word revolution in big gray letters with a red hunk in the middle. If you think about it, if you see it, love is spelled backwards right in the middle of revolution. And love is in red. Those of you who can see it quickly. Those of you who are imagining it, it must be a task. R-E-V-O-L. If you flip it, you see love. That's on a storefront in Uptown. 3 female figures, a pregnant woman, a young girl, and a grown woman, all of them African American apparently. All mothers were summoned when he called out for his. In addition to the wall, you can see a power box painted with the city in the distance, an extremely urban image. On Penzi Spices, you can see the door of a store that was plywooded and broken and vandalized. And on one side of that open door that's very dark, you can see a painting of many colors that says "Embrace Hope." And on the other side, a million flying rainbow birds. And on the far right of the screen, the symbol for the artist who was once known as Prince. A series of murals slightly north of the one we just looked at on Hennepin Avenue. 3 images of unity with 3 people looking. And most importantly, I want to point out the image of George's face. On one side, no justice, no peace. And the word no is spelled K-N-O-W. If we know justice, we will know peace. No justice, no peace. And on the other side of his face is printed no, N-O, no justice, no peace. This image is a plywooded window filled with a silhouette of an African American woman's face, which is also a tree. And out of her afro, her hair is becoming birds, which are flying free. There's an apple falling from her, and the words say, "Strange fruit, Billie Holiday, 1939. The boarded window just beside her is filled with the birds that came from her hair. And there's a quote from Stevie Wonder here: "I hope you hear inside my voice of sorrow, and that it motivates you to make a better tomorrow." Stevie Wonder, 1973. The grass beneath those words is painted with a name on every blade of grass. A mural on that same street of an old-fashioned phonograph with white doves flying out of it against a soft gray background with a lovely pink banner that says, "Together we soar." Heart, heart, heart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 white doves. On a movie theater, it's over. Go home. Take out movies only, it says above where you can't see in this sign. This was put up almost immediately. It's a big red sign that has George Floyd with his fists out, as if he's wearing those rings that have the letters across the knuckles, and his hands say, "Love Minneapolis." And in the background it says, "Do the right thing. Justice for George Floyd." We're getting very close to the end of my show, folks. This is on the west side of Uptown. It's a large mural that's painted on plywood. George Floyd's face, wings, white kind of angel wings coming out from the sides, the city skyline in the background, "Justice for George" underneath. And on one wing it says, "In a racist society, it is not enough to be non-racist." On the other wing it says, "We must be anti-racist." The artists who created this mural have recorded themselves in a little heart in the bottom corner. Maya Angelou, a portrait of her painted on a brick wall. And it says these words, "You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise." And her name, Maya Angelou. On plywood with spray paint, this one's crude. It just says, "This is not a moment, it's a movement," and a peace sign. Back at Ground Zero, a battered, distressed electric box. "Long live George." And a little sign of two dark brown hands holding a candle stuck on a industrial pipe of some kind. "Your light shines with us. Justice for George Floyd." And last but not least, somewhere between Ground Zero and Uptown, this incredible window, a little girl with her arms spread wide against a sunrise. Beneath her, it says BLM, 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 BLM as a kind of a texture. And above her, it says, "Daddy changed the world." I gotta take a deep breath. So much of what we have just heard is layered and complicated. My goodness, I gave very, very brief descriptions as journalistically as possible. But so much of what we've just experienced lands in nonverbal places. So as it begins to soak in, we take a deep breath and we have a song to sing. A song that, strangely enough, is about silence, a time for silence. And the lyrics have been written for just this, not moment, but movement. When I walked the route that I photographed, I did so after the demonstrations, and I remembered as I walked what Jesus told the authorities in the story of Palm Sunday. If you silence the people, the stones themselves will cry out. Someone commented on a Facebook post that contained those messages, Jesus meant they will cry out, "Jesus is Lord." And I say, exactly. And what does that mean? Except that we cannot crown Jesus the Prince of Peace until we listen to his commandments to do justice and love one another. If Jesus is Lord, amen. There are no shortcuts through these singing, shouting streets. We got our work cut out for us.